We've been conditioned to believe that our emotions are who we are, that if we feel angry, we are an angry person. If we feel hurt, we are a victim. But this is one of the greatest illusions, keeping us bound to our old self, to a familiar past that repeats itself over and over, disguised as different people, different scenarios, but always triggering the same chemical reactions in our body. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever watched yourself get angry, not just felt the emotion, but witnessed it, almost as if from the outside looking in? That split-second moment of awareness is the key, because the moment you observe the emotion instead of becoming it, you interrupt the program. You interrupt the chemical feedback loop that tells your body what it's supposed to feel. And in that very moment, you begin to reclaim your power. Emotions like anger, frustration, jealousy, or guilt, they are not you. They are old energy, memorized reactions, neural pathways that have been fired and wired so many times that they've become part of your personality. And yet, none of them are hardwired. They are habits, habits of thought, habits of feeling, habits of being. When you understand this, you can begin to separate your identity from your emotional state. You realize, I feel anger right now, but I am not anger. That's a very different experience than saying, I am angry. One is a temporary state you're passing through. The other is a label you wear, a role you play, and a reality you attract more of. This is the beginning of becoming the observer, the witness, the awareness behind the emotion, and neuroscience confirms this. When you consistently observe an emotional state without reacting to it, you weaken the synaptic connections that fuel it. Your brain literally starts unwiring the pattern. At the same time, when you choose a new emotion piece, calm, compassion, and stay conscious in that choice, you begin wiring new pathways. You train your body to experience a new future instead of reliving the past. But here's the paradox: your body doesn't want to let go of the old emotion, because that emotion is familiar. It's predictable. It's part of the identity you've been rehearsing for years. So when you decide not to react in the usual way, your body throws a fit. It urges you to speak, to defend, to explode, to justify. It wants the hit of chemicals it's used to. But if you can sit with that urge, breathe through it, observe it without judgment, you begin to rise above the emotion. You're no longer trapped in it. You're watching it. And what you can watch, you can change. Think of it this way: the mind thinks and the body feels. When those two are aligned in a pattern of anger or stress, your whole being is living in the past. Your mind remembers the trigger. Your body remembers how it felt. And together, they keep you locked in a state that no longer serves you. But when your consciousness, your pure awareness steps in, you disrupt that cycle. You say, no, this isn't who I want to be anymore. This isn't the future I'm creating. And in that moment, you're not reacting, you're creating. You're not surviving, you're evolving. That's what becoming the observer does. It gives you choice. It gives you space between stimulus and response. And in that space lies your power. Not the power to control others, but the power to choose who you want to be in any situation, regardless of how others behave. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about transcending it, watching the wave come and choosing not to ride it, letting the energy move through without attaching your story to it, because your story is often the very thing keeping the emotion alive. The more you tell it, the more you reinforce it. And the more you reinforce it, the more real it becomes. But once you become the observer, you're free, not from life, but from the unconscious self. The self that used to react automatically, habitually, without thought. That self begins to dissolve, and in its place, a new self begins to emerge, one that is not bound by emotion, but informed by wisdom. Not controlled by reaction, but guided by awareness, not stuck in the past, but conscious in the present. Your personality is not fixed. It's not some immutable identity etched into your DNA. What we call personality is actually a set of memorized behaviors, emotional responses, thought patterns, beliefs, and perceptions, and each of those is wired into your brain through repetition. In other words, who you think you are, your personality, is a habit. Now, if your personality creates your personal reality, and your personality is based on who you've been in the past, then it makes sense that your life keeps looking the same. You wake up every morning, you think the same thoughts, you feel the same emotions, you take the same actions. And those repeated thoughts and emotions are literally firing the same neural circuits in your brain, hardwiring your identity, reinforcing the past in the present moment. This is why change feels difficult. Because you're not just trying to change your circumstances, you're trying to break free from a neurological and emotional prison that feels like home. The familiar you is a pattern, a construct built from everything you've been and everything you've rehearsed being. If you keep being that person, you'll keep living that life. But here's the truth: your brain is neuroplastic. It is designed to change. You are biologically wired for transformation. To rewire your brain, you first have to become aware of the thoughts you think every day, the unconscious stream of dialogue that loops in your head. Most of these thoughts are negative, limiting, and repetitive. They're tied to past experiences and are usually anchored by emotion. Thoughts like, "I always get disrespected," or "no one takes me seriously," or "I'll never change." These aren't objective truth. They're mental recordings you've played so many times that your brain has built circuits around them. And those thoughts trigger emotions, anger, frustration, resentment, which your body memorizes. Your body becomes the unconscious mind. It gets addicted to those feelings, and soon you're no longer thinking your emotions are thinking you. To truly change, you must interrupt the signal. That begins by observe the thought, witness the emotion, step out of the loop. Because when you become conscious of an unconscious behavior, you are no longer the program, you are the programmer. Let's go deeper. Every time you think a thought, you make a chemical. That chemical causes you to feel a certain way. That emotion reinforces the thought. That loop, thought to emotion to thought, is the cycle that creates your state of being. If you think self-defeating thoughts, you feel discouraged. That feeling generates more thoughts of helplessness. Before you know it, your identity is shaped around limitation. Now imagine this. What if you began thinking elevated thoughts instead? Thoughts aligned with who you want to become, not who you've been. Thoughts of abundance, gratitude, worthiness, peace. Those thoughts would produce new emotions that are coherent, regenerative, expansive. And those emotions would signal your brain to create new neural pathways. You'd begin to feel inspired, not by something outside of you, but from within you. The key is repetition. You must mentally rehearse being the new version of yourself before you ever see the evidence of it in your outer world. The brain doesn't know the difference between what's happening out there and what you vividly imagine in here. If you do it enough, your brain begins to wire as if that future is already real. And when your brain and body are aligned to a new future, rather than memorized to the past, you become a new person. That is how you rewire your brain. This is the science of self-creation. You are no longer living as a record of your past. You are living as a vision of your future. But vision alone is not enough. You must act as if that future version of yourself is who you are now. You must fire the thoughts of your future, feel the emotions of your future, take the actions of your future until your brain and body begin to believe in that version more than the one you woke up with. And when you do that consistently, consciously, courageously, your personality changes, not because you forced it, but because you stopped feeding the old self. You rewrote the code. You built new circuits. You chose a new energy. You conditioned your body to a new mind. You began to close the gap between who you've been and who you're becoming. And because your personality is changing, your personal reality has no choice but to shift with it. Not by chance, but by design. Everything in this universe is energy. Your thoughts, your emotions, your body, your experiences, all of it vibrates at a certain frequency, and the frequency you emit is the invitation you send to life. It's the signal that tells the quantum field who you are and what you believe. The energy you embody becomes the reality you experience. This is not philosophy. This is physics. When you live in anger, in judgment, in stress, you are living in a state of incoherence. Your body is out of alignment. Your heart and brain are out of rhythm, and your energy is dense. You may not see it, but you feel it. Heavy, contracted, reactive. You walk into a room and feel the tension. You speak to someone and feel their negativity clinging to you afterward. That's the noise, the loaf. Frequency, emotional atmosphere most people unconsciously live in. You're not meant to carry that energy. You're not designed to marinate in conflict, to be consumed by the chaos around you, or to let the behavior of others dictate your state of being. That's the old way, the survival way, the reactive self that gets triggered by the smallest thing and spends the day mentally rehearsing the wound. But when you understand that energy is a frequency and that you have the power to choose the frequency you live on, everything changes. You begin to take responsibility for your vibration. You begin to ask, what am I broadcasting right now? Not just with your words, but with your emotions, your thoughts, your presence. Are you broadcasting lack or abundance? Fear or love, reaction or intention? When you become aware of your frequency, you stop being a victim of your environment. You become a creator of your internal state, and your internal state begins to influence your external world. Now, here's the catch. The moment you start raising your energy, everything that exists on a lower frequency will try to pull you back. Not because the world is against you, but because your nervous system has memorized the chaos. Your identity has been wrapped around low vibrational patterns. So when you choose peace instead of defensiveness, your body feels unsafe. It doesn't recognize calm as familiar. It wants to go back to the noise because the noise is what it knows. This is where most people sabotage their growth, not because they don't want to rise, but because they're still addicted to the energy of the old self. You must become aware that your energy is your responsibility. No one else can lower it unless you give them permission. When someone cuts you off in traffic, they're not reaching into your chest and dialing down your frequency. When a coworker says something rude, they're not pressing a button inside you that forces you to react. It only feels that way because you've practiced reacting so many times that the reaction happens automatically. But you can train yourself to stay above the noise. You can condition yourself to hold your energy steady no matter what chaos is swirling outside of you. It's a skill, and like any skill, it takes awareness and repetition. Start your day by setting your frequency, not reacting to someone else's. Instead of grabbing your phone and absorbing everyone else's energy first thing in the morning, go inward, breathe, visualize. Align. Ask yourself who you want to be today. Feel that version of you now. Don't wait for something outside of you to trigger peace generated. Don't wait for someone to behave before you feel good. Decide that you are the one who decides. Because the moment you stop giving your power away to what other people think, say, or do, you rise. You rise above gossip. You rise above the news. You rise above blame and resentment, and in that elevated state, you become magnetic. You don't chase anything, you attract everything that matches your frequency. Think of it like tuning a radio. If you're trying to hear a classical music station, but you're stuck on a heavy metal frequency, you're going to hear distortion. You'll say, "Why can't I find peace?" But peace is playing just on a different frequency. You have to tune your mind and body to the station you want to live on. And when you do, the noise around you no longer pulls you in. It moves around you, it exists, but it doesn't define you. You notice it, but you don't merge with it. You see the drama, but you don't need to enter it, because you know who you are, and you know the power of the frequency you've chosen to live by. Same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and perform the same behaviors. This creates a cycle where the past is projected into the present and continues into the future. Their reality becomes a mirror of their memory. But memory is the record of the past, and if you are living from memory, you are recycling your identity based on who you were, not who you could be. You are allowing your past experiences, your traumas, your disappointments, your emotional scars to dictate your behavior and limit your potential. When you think the way you've always thought and feel the way you've always felt, you are hardwiring the past into your biology. Your brain keeps firing the same circuits, your body keeps producing the same chemistry, and your energy remains tethered to an outdated version of yourself. The problem isn't that we have a past. The problem is that we keep living in it. We define ourselves by it, we use it as a reason not to grow, and yet we wonder why change feels impossible. We can't create a new future while holding on to an old identity. That's not transformation, that's survival. To live from vision, not from memory, is to choose your future self and begin living as if that self already exists. It's to wake up in the morning and instead of reviewing the problems of yesterday, you mentally rehearse the person you intend to become. You picture it, you feel it, you connect to the thoughts and emotions of a life that has not yet happened, and by doing so, you begin to embody it now. This is how you step into the quantum model of reality. The model where the future isn't something that happens to you, it's something you create. You don't wait for evidence before you believe and the evidence begins to appear. You don't wait for peace to come from outside you. You generate it from within. You don't hope to feel empowered, you practice feeling empowered every day until it becomes your new baseline. And the moment you do this, your body begins to believe it's living in that new future. Your brain begins to form new neural connections. Your nervous system starts wiring itself to a new reality. You're no longer defined by your past, you are defined by your potential. But this requires discipline. Because the body wants to return to what's familiar. It will crave the emotions of stress, anger, resentment, or sadness, because those emotions have become chemically addictive. Your subconscious mind will try to pull you back into the story of who you were, tempting you to replay old scenarios, revisit old wounds, or react in the old, predictable way. This is where awareness becomes your greatest tool. When you notice yourself slipping into memory, pause, breathe, interrupt the pattern, remind yourself, this is not who I'm becoming, this is who I've been. Living from vision means falling in love with a future reality more than you are attached to the comfort of your past. It means tuning into a new possibility with such emotional intensity that your body begins to experience it as real. The vision has to be more compelling than the familiar emotions that want to pull you back. The dream has to be greater than the memory, and so each day becomes a practice, a rehearsal of the future you. You think new thoughts on purpose. You choose new emotions by design. You act in ways that are aligned with where you're going, not where you've been. You speak the language of your future. Walk with the posture of your future and feel the gratitude of your future. Not later now, because the future isn't something you wait for. It's something you become. When you live from vision, your outer world begins to reorganize itself to match your internal state. People, opportunities, resources, they don't come by chance. They are drawn to the energy you are broadcasting. The universe responds not to your wishes, but to your alignment. And alignment comes when your thoughts, emotions, and actions are coherent, all directed toward the life you are consciously creating. The mind is a powerful tool, but it's also a wild horse if left unchecked. Most people live with their minds in constant overdrive, thoughts racing, emotions fluctuating, attention pulled in every direction. This restless mental activity is the source of most suffering, stress, and emotional reactivity. When the mind masters you, you live in reaction, trapped in habitual patterns that replay past conditioning. But when you master the mind, you step into freedom, a place where you can consciously create your reality rather than be a victim of it. Meditation is the doorway to mastering the mind. It is the intentional practice of stepping out of the chaotic mental chatter and observing it without attachment or judgment. In the stillness of meditation, you discover that your thoughts are not who you are. They are simply passing phenomena like clouds moving across the sky. The sky itself remains vast and unchanging, just as your true self exists beyond the mind's noise. Most people underestimate meditation because they think it's about stopping thoughts. But meditation is not about forcing the mind to be quiet. It's about becoming aware of your mind's activity without getting swept away by it. When you observe your thoughts without reacting, you create a space between stimulus and response. That space is your power. Science shows that meditation physically changes the brain. It increases the thickness of the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for decision making, focus, and emotional regulation. It strengthens the neural networks associated with attention and self-awareness, while weakening the circuits tied to stress and anxiety. With regular meditation, your brain literally rewires itself to be more calm, clear, and resilient. Beyond the brain, meditation shifts your nervous system. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state, which lowers heart rate, reduces cortisol levels, and balances hormone. This physiological shift creates a biochemical environment where higher states of consciousness and emotional balance can flourish. When you meditate consistently, you begin to see your automatic reactions for what they are, conditioned responses rooted in past experience, not truths you have to obey. You realize that many of the thoughts that cause stress, anger, or fear are just mental habits playing on repeat. This realization empowers you to stop feeding those patterns. Mastering the mind through meditation is also about learning to direct your attention consciously. Most people's attention is hijacked by external stimuli, social media, news, notifications, and internal noise, worries, judgments, ruminations. But attention is energy. Where you place your attention, you direct your life. Meditation teaches you how to harness that energy deliberately. In the practice of meditation, you can cultivate specific states of being: peace, gratitude, compassion, joy. You train your brain and body to feel these elevated emotions without relying on external circumstances. This is the foundation of emotional resilience. You become less reactive to triggers because your baseline shifts. Furthermore, meditation opens access to deeper states of consciousness where transformation occurs. In stillness, you connect with the quantum field of infinite possibilities. You access the creative intelligence beyond linear thought. You learn to envision and embody the future self you want to become. It is important to understand that mastering the mind is a process, not a one-time event. The mind will resist because it prefers familiarity over growth. It will send waves of distraction, doubt, and restlessness. But with patience and persistence, meditation helps you build the muscle of mindfulness, the capacity to remain present and centered amid mental chaos. This mastery allows you to respond instead of react. When faced with provocation, instead of anger rising unconsciously, you become aware of the emotion as it arises and choose a different path. When anxiety appears, you observe it without judgment and let it pass through. This conscious response rewires your brain and body to a new pattern. Ultimately, meditation teaches you that the source of true power lies within. It's not in controlling the outside world, but in mastering your internal world. The mind, once mastered, becomes your greatest ally rather than your greatest adversary. It becomes the instrument through which you create a life aligned with your highest potential.